welcome, I am Zombie Kitty and welcome to another reaction video. So, we're going to be going back to the FNAF reaction videos. A lot of you have recommended me a few different videos after I watched the Unwithered Truths reboot videos. So I'm going to be going through them in the next few, basically for the rest of the month actually. So, the first one we're going to do is I solved FNAF using one character. This is with Unwithered Truth and Gibby's Horror Homestead. So this was recommended to me by tiskazuto. So thank you. I know you also, I think, recommended to me another YouTuber that we've reacted to before. So I do also have one of their videos in my watch later list. Apologies, it's still quite humid here, so I'm a bit all over the place with my speaking still, so I apologise for that. But yeah, they said that this one concerns FNAF 4 a lot, which is going to be quite interesting. So I wonder if this is going to be to do with Fredbear, or I don't know. I was going to say Golden Freddy because the thumbnail looks like it's Golden Freddy, but it might more be Fredbear. But yeah. Let's go. It is sensitivity warning.
What does it mean to be broken? What about this yellow bear gives it supernatural abilities greater than any other character we've seen in the FNAF franchise? And what does it have to do with this crying child? Today, I'm going to answer every one of these questions.
We've kind of already done this.
Not only will we discover the truth to Golden Freddy, but we're finally going to put this broken timeline back together.
I mean, I feel like we've already done this in a previous video, haven't we? This is cool, the intro. Golden Freddy. God Victim. Part 1, Broken Timeline.
Back in 2015, following the middling reception of the third FNAF game, Scott Cawthon decided to come back one last time, and wrap up the story in a big, neat bow with Five Nights at Freddy's 4, the final chapter. At this point in time, it seemed like we had a pretty tight understanding of the first three games, Purple Phone Guy and a few extra spirits notwithstanding, but suddenly we had a lot of new, erroneous details to figure out. There was a new dead kid, rumors of murders before Freddy's even opens, and an event that sure seems like the Bite of 87, given all those hints in the website teasers, but just can't be due to a handful of very crucial contradictions. It didn't take long for people to figure out that this game actually takes place in 1983 during the Fredbear's Family Diner era, but that only raises more questions. Why are there all these weird details from later in the timeline? Who is this kid dressed like the puppet but killed by Fredbear? Why is this plushie speaking to him? And why does it seem like this is Happiest Day all over again? And Scott was actually surprised that we didn't figure it out. I've come to realize that all of these unanswered questions are ultimately the result of us not understanding how Golden Freddy works. To figure that out, we have to first look backwards to the last time Scott ever directly tried to help the community solve these games.
Okay, so I'm gonna say something because what do you mean he was surprised that we didn't figure it out? You made it too vague and too confusing. We've talked about this before, and this is the thing with some of these videos, is I do feel like we're gonna start overlapping thoughts and what I'm saying. So yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna talk too much during this because I don't want to end up repeating myself from a previous video. This is also what I talked about before, why I don't usually do FNAF theory videos unless I think there's enough there for it to stand out. Because to me, most of them are just saying the same thing but just in a different way. Like, it's the same thing at the end of the day. But we'll see if this one says anything different.
During a game theory livestream dedicated to solving FNAF 4, Scott began updating his website in real time to provide the community with 3 hints. These 3 very short, simple sentences would forever haunt FNAF discourse. You know these 3 hints, but you probably aren't as familiar with the context in which they were sent.
Wait, no, I want to go back because I actually don't know this. After me saying, oh yeah, it's all kind of the same, I don't know this actually.
You know these 3 hints, but...
Okay, because I actually didn't really frequent scottgames.com because I just didn't know about it. I wasn't really, when I first started getting into FNAF, I wasn't really as deep into the lore as I am now. And I think a lot of that has to do with Ultimate Custom Night and especially Help Wanted 1 was especially where I started deep diving into the FNAF lore. I know it's a weird one to pick up on because the lore's messy with like security breaks and help wanted and all that lot. But that's where I got more interested in the lore and that kind of thing. But with this kind of stuff, I just didn't know about the Scott Games website at the time. So anything, you know, any teasers and stuff that was being put on the website, I found out about much later on. But not all of it I knew about. So actually, I don't know about this. In the FNAF 4 minigame, why was the tiny toy Chica why would she be missing her beak? What is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. 4 games, 1 story. Okay. I don't know. I don't really understand what that means. I think also by the time that 4 and even Sister Location was coming around, this is where I actually started to lose interest in FNAF. I didn't come back around. I don't know if I've told this before, actually. Or maybe I have, maybe a couple of years ago, actually. I didn't start coming back around into being interested in FNAF until Dorco beat 50/20 mode. Like, that was what piqued my interest again. Not an exaggeration, not a lie, that was literally what got me back into FNAF. Because I started getting interested in, okay, what is this 50/20 mode? What do you mean? Why is this so difficult? Who is this YouTuber that's beat it? What is going on? Blah, blah, blah. So I kind of gained an interest again after that, and I've never really left it. But yeah, point being is, like, I don't really know too much about this side of things. I think the other thing as well, sorry, I will continue playing the video in a minute, but I want to get this out of the way now so that I've said it. But the other thing as well is they've mentioned MatPat's like live streams. The reason that the lore is also so confusing is because Scott kept getting annoyed that Matt was guessing it so easily, so kept changing things to always keep us on our toes, which is not how you're supposed to do things. It's not how you're supposed to do things.
So I looked back at the moments leading up to each teaser and used that to analyse not only what Scott was saying, but why he was saying it. In the lead up to the first hint, Matt, Pat and guest Alex were discussing the 1997 teaser codes and all of the seemingly random Easter eggs throughout the game.
Scott, since we know you're listening, it's also really hard to tell what is and isn't an Easter egg or clue, right?
That 87 business, it's like it was a red herring, I think.
Food for thought on this live stream or a future live stream. During the mini-games in FNAF 4, why would the tiny toy Chica be missing her beak?
It is so
It's obvious
weird.
that Scott wanted to clear something up.
I know, I'm pausing so much. It is so weird seeing Dorco, like, in a completely different recording room. Because I've just said this, I didn't know his channel at this point, so... Oh, that's so weird. Dude. That's so cool, though.
About these 87 teasers. They're not red herrings as suggested here by Alex. If they were, why would the tiny toy Chica be missing her beak? It's clearly evoking the actual toy Chica from FNAF 2. The next teaser came pretty soon after the first, meaning that Scott most likely wanted the two to be considered alongside one another.
He said, what he's seeing in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child.
Yeah.
So...
From here,
No
Matt
idea.
starts to develop a hypothesis.
This is weird, okay? But it's
I
one of
don't
the
get
things
this
that
one.
immediately jumps to my mind. Is it possible that FNAF 2 didn't actually happen?
To which Scott very quickly replies,
Yeah, he said 4 games, 1 story. That's what he said on the website. 4
So it did
games,
happen.
1 story.
This final hint, in context, makes a lot more sense. It seems like Scott may have been trying to dispel the notion that FNAF 2 was a dream. However, MatPat actually took this as a hint that he wasn't going far enough and led him to create his infamous Dream Theory video. That theory essentially proposes that Scott was retconning all 3 prior games to be fictitious hallucinations dreamt up in the dying mind of the crying child. Now, this theory has a lot of problems, but it fit neatly enough as an explanation that a lot of people still believe it was Scott's original intention with FNAF 4. However, today, I'm here to tell you that MatPat was actually kind of right.
What?
But only kind of. Stick with me. See, MatPat got all the right pieces of evidence, arranged them all in the right way, but just didn't quite stick the landing.
I don't like this theory.
But hey, listen, I don't blame him. When I came to the conclusion I'm about to explain, I wasn't so sure either. But if you give me a chance, you'll see that this is almost certainly what Scott was trying to tell us with FNAF 4.
Putting the pieces in place. Okay, fine, let's do this, I guess.
Is a clever detail for Scott to highlight, because it brings to mind the other out-of-place connections to the rest of the franchise littered throughout this game. Now, the most obvious and important thing to note about these connections is that most of them line up suspiciously well with the Happiest Day minigames in FNAF 3. BB's air adventure connects to this kid on the street holding a balloon. Mangle's quest links to the broken toy in the sister's room. Chica's party is clearly called on by the tiny toy Chica missing its beak. And RWQ's minigame would be referenced by these shadows cast by Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. Not to mention Stage 01 clearly taking place in Fredbear's family diner. Now, I'm far from the first person to point these connections out, but it's important to note that Scott is connecting the crying child's memories of this week to the resolution of Happiest Day, which ends at a birthday party with 4 guests wearing animatronic masks. The final child, the birthday boy, receives a Fredbear mask once all the spirits are gathered there. So that's a pretty clean answer, right? Why is this stuff in FNAF 4? Well, it's to link it to the Golden Freddy kid in FNAF 3. Case closed.
Except no.
Obviously not. Case back open.
Yeah,
because the issue isn't why these things are here, it's how. Almost all of these examples are in some way out of place chronologically, given that this game takes place years before a lot of it should be able to exist. And those connections to Happiest Day aren't the only
because that doesn't make sense that the toy animatronics would be there.
Include this kid calling their Spring Bonnie toy a finger trap, which is an obvious nod to the purple guy's fate. Willie A himself is seen here rocking the same fit as we see in FNAF 2's Save Them. This Susie lookalike with the tiny toys is striking a withered Chica scarecrow pose, and this Foxy plush is as close to the teddy bear equivalent of out of order as you can get. And even still, there are more connections to future events.
Wait, hang on, let's have a look at this. List of future connections. Toy Chica missing her beak. Mangle, Foxy toy, Balloon Boy Kid, Shadow on the Wall, Twinkle looking like the Save Them thing, the Susie lookalike, boys like Chica. Okay.
2 in particular, which we should analyze more closely. The first is what we hear from the pigtail girl outside Fredbear's 2 days before the crying child is bitten.
You better watch out. I hear they come to life at night, and if you die, they hide your body and never tell anyone.
Which implies that it's already happened
of this
before.
dialogue would imply that the missing children's incident has already occurred, and that Fredbear's and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza are open simultaneously. However, this directly contradicts what we've been told about Fredbear's, that being it was a predecessor to Freddy's. In FNAF 3, Phone Guy refers to the Fredbear and Spring Bonnie animatronics as the classic suits, at the Freddy's where the MCI occurs, meaning that by the time of the missing children's incident, Fredbear's is long gone, and its star performers have been taken out of the spotlight and put into the new restaurant as side acts.
But then what about all this Freddy's merchandise in FNAF 4? Checkmate.
Well, as seen on the TV later that same day, the Freddy's gang are actually cartoon characters who act as the supporting cast for Fredbear. In the security logbook on a page dedicated to rebrandings, which occur whenever a PR disaster strikes, Mike draws the bloody-mouthed Fredbear as the mascot for the rebranded Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. On another page, which deals with exactly the same kind of PR complaints, Mike writes,
"He tripped and fell on Freddy's teeth. Not our fault."
All this is to say that the Freddy's brand is almost certainly the result of having to reorganize Fredbear's after the big bite. Fazbear Entertainment quickly pulls those canned prototypes based off their popular cartoon mascots and makes them the non-reputation-destroyed stars of the
What was that?
Most likely, these playground rumors of animatronics coming to life at night are actually just, well, playground rumors. Scary stories dreamt up by the kids
but it's a bit too close to the truth.
With that being said, much like the Mangle and the toy Chica missing her beak, this seems odd to be coincidentally true in the future, but baseless here in the past. And if you thought that was on the nose, we still have yet to mention the most glaring future forward reference in the entire game.
Bite of 87.
Was that the bite of 87?
I'm sorry, I just couldn't get through a FNAF 4 video without referencing
this. You have to do it.
In fairness, Mark's reaction here is understandable. To the average viewer, this is most certainly a good contender for the infamous bite we heard about back in FNAF 1, and Scott definitely knew that we'd think this. As already discussed, Scott even teed up the 87 connections throughout the marketing, but like I said, I don't think that was just to mess with people. Scott likes to be cryptic, and sure, he has some rug-pulling reveals in his games, like FNAF 2 not being a sequel, or Springtrap turning out to be the purple guy. But
Yeah.
this? I mean, sure, it's a twist if you look really deep into the minigames and find this one TV with 1983 on it, but what? The twist is there's actually 2 bytes? Okay. It'd be a strange choice to include all this stuff just to turn around and say, gotcha, none of that meant anything. But again, as we've concluded, these weren't just random red herrings. So what does it all mean? And if it's not dream theory, how could I suggest that MatPack was still kinda correct? Well, he took all this time-traveling imagery to mean that these future events couldn't have actually occurred, and that this game was the only one which takes place in reality. But what if I told you that those future events did occur precisely because of what we see in FNAF 4, or more accurately, because of what the crying child sees. Due to the unique circumstances surrounding his death, this boy's memories begin to affect reality itself. This theory will not only explain FNAF 4, but shows that when Scott wrote this game, he was playing 4D chess, simultaneously giving us the origins to the franchise and solving...
No, I am here to tell you that he was not. We've done this before. We've been here before. Where it was like, I can't remember, what was said? Like, oh, maybe Scott did this because he was planning this. And I said, oh, he just completely forgot about it and didn't know what to do. And it's the same thing here. Oh, he's playing 4D chess. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's realised he's created contradictories and he's trying to, like, fix that. But then nothing gets confirmed. We've done this all before. Nothing gets confirmed as canon. So everyone gets confused the entire time. Like... I do think... Because I don't know when this video came out compared to his one to do with Cassidy. I wonder if his theories on Cassidy is going to come into this as well. Because he just said, oh, the memories of the crying child is what got brought into reality. Is that also going to play into like Cassidy and Golden Freddy and stuff? Actually, it might do. But yeah, I don't know when this video came out and when the other one came out. So, yeah, these might all be connected.
Some of the biggest questions we had about the lore in one big fight.
That is a horrible sound, by the way, the screaming. Part 3, God
This might seem like a big pill to swallow, especially with such a grandiose T-Dreadsian title, but follow me and understand that there is a lot of textual evidence for this theory, not only in the games themselves, but scattered all throughout this multimedia franchise.
You gotta include the books
to be clear,
as well.
I'm suggesting that the real animatronic Toy Chica in the year 1987 removes her beak because CC saw this broken toy with the same malfunction. The Funtime Foxy animatronic is torn apart by kids that same year because CC saw a disassembled Foxy toy years earlier in his sister's room. Springtrap, Balloon Boy, the Shadows, everything MatPat used as dream theory evidence, we flip to become a future event influenced by the memory of the past. And again, the same two future connections which we highlighted before prove particularly interesting when viewed through this lens. This time though, let's discuss the Bite of 87 first. Given some clues we've received over the last few years, we have a fair understanding that Withered Foxy, or potentially Mangle, was actually the one to commit this second bite. However, I think Scott already gave us this answer in 2015. Under God Victim, the Bite of 87 would have been caused by the crying child's memory of his own injury, but the perpetrator would have been Foxy because, in his mind, that's who was actually at fault. Michael wearing the Foxy
what was that editor? Whoa, this is a weird image. What was that editor note?
Would have been Foxy because, in his mind, that's who was actually at fault.
I don't literally mean CC thought Foxy put him in Fredbear's mouth. He blames Michael, who was wearing the Foxy mask. Yeah, and then his memory caused Foxy to do the second bite. Okay, I can see where you're going with this. Memories influence reality, and this is how these events have happened. Okay, I get where you're going with this. So you're kind of putting time travel in here as well. Did you mention that earlier? I was going to say, you're kind of putting time travel into this as well, because then it becomes a bit of a weird, like, circle, where it's like, oh yeah, but how did the Toy Chica without the beak happen, and the Mangle, and blah blah blah. Unless it's just a one-way thing. I'm not I understand this part, but I'm not really understanding anything else. It's like I get the same logic has applied, but I'm not quite understanding it yet. I'm stupid is what I'm saying.
Fault. Michael wearing the Foxy mask eventually gets warped by broken memories into Foxy causing the next bite in 1987. In the FNAF 4 teasers, there's even this image of Nightmare Foxy with the numbers 8 and 7 reflected in his eyes, showing us that this character witnessed the event.
Oh yeah, I can just about see it.
Furthermore, we have the
edges.
1987 Easter egg in FNAF 1, where inputting that year into the custom night gets you jump scared by Golden Freddy, indicating his ghostly relationship with this event. The connections between the Bite, Foxy, and Fredbears are actually further cemented in external media, specifically the week before. Now, admittedly, the books are dubiously canon, even the interactive novels, but I think the connections here are interesting nonetheless. On night 4 in Pirates Cove, you can receive a Fredbear's Family Diner ticket, stained with blood, but we have to wonder why this would be here. Maybe to draw our attention to the link between Foxy and the Big Bite. I mean, in FNAF 3, the Foxy's Kid Spirit is even directly linked to the Fredbear Stage 01 minigame. Now, for that other thing I think the Crying Child influenced. This will almost be certainly controversial, but allow me to lay it out as plainly and simply as I can. 3 days before he's bitten, the Crying Child is prompted by the Fredbear plush to remember what he saw. Only moments later, we can see the purple guy in his one and only appearance in this game.
I'm suggesting... Wait, what did that say? I'm suggesting that this scene is non-diegetic, representing what CC saw in the past. Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
Appearance in this game, lurking in a back room. In reality, William here is just helping an employee into their costume, but let's not forget that second, very important hint that Scott gave us on the GT livestream. What is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood.
So this is what I was thinking of as well.
Given that there have been playground rumors going around of people going missing and animatronics coming to life at night, I think that CC misunderstood what was happening in that back room. What I'm suggesting is that William Afton was inspired to start stuffing kids in suits because CC thought that's what he saw his father doing in the back room. Don't get me wrong, I don't think William was just a totally nice guy who CC worked into becoming a murderer.
We talked about this
I think
before.
his method of disposal was almost certainly brought on by CC's memory. But the real question is why and how can CC do this? Well, I think it all has to do with how he died.
Oh my god, sorry. Can we go back on that poster? Oh my god, look at the Fredbear poster. That is horrifying. I love the way that you've set this up as well, actually. Like him sitting in the office is really cute. And the little parts, like the little chapter titles, are really nice. And the intro as well. I really like how you've like laid this all out. Even if I'm not completely understanding or agreeing with everything, I do like how you've done this. Part 4, losing a lobe. Yeah, here we go.
Now, I and many others have believed that the Crying Child's death, though preceded by a bite, is unique when compared to the bite of 87. That event resulted in the victim losing their frontal lobe, but the same can't coincidentally be true for another separate event. Clearly, CC had his head crushed and...
Hello? What the hell? What was that?
Scott Coughlin said on Reddit that CC did lose his frontal lobe, and nobody took note because it was a reply to a joke post. Got it.
What?
Here we have...
Wait, what? Wait, are you serious? I knew that was canon, but I didn't know how. Is that really? That is so... That makes so much sense, though. Because the amount of stuff Scott would be like, oh yeah, ha ha ha, blah blah blah. And it turns out to be canon. It's like, yeah, but you say this all the time, and you like vaguely hint at stuff all the time. Like, we don't know what's serious or not, we don't know what's canon or not, like... Yeah, no wonder people didn't take notice of it.
Confirmation from Scott that CC did in fact suffer the same fate as Jeremy in the bite of 87. Now, I don't blame you if you're still not convinced. Maybe Scott was just goofing around and didn't think too hard about his reply.
And that's
I thought
the problem.
Exactly the same thing when I read it for the first time as well. But then, out of morbid curiosity, I went looking to see if anything could be learned about Golden Freddy if CC did in fact lose his frontal lobe. And I was shocked. In my research, I found several medical journals which listed the following as common complications for patients who have sustained damage to their frontal lobe.
Oh
Minimal
wow, you actually did real life
difficulty organizing
research.
information temporarily,
Hi, fan.
mood swings, changes in social behavior and personality, loss of acute motor function, sometimes resulting in paralysis, difficulties with impulse control, and speech and language production. I wonder if we have any paralyzed character who acts erratically, suffers from memory problems, and only speaks in short, simple sentences.
Yes,
look,
I wonder.
I know this might seem like I cherry-picked some symptoms that fit my conclusion, but look it up for yourself. There is so much research done about
I
this,
get
and
what
there is
you're
a
doing.
staggering number of sources which cite many,
I think
if
it's
not all of
appropriate
these, as results of frontal lobe damage. What I'm saying is that if I could find this stuff, you can be sure that Scott Cawthon would have been able to when writing FNAF 4. If you want more in-game evidence, we can look to FNAF World, a game explicitly said to act as the method by which the crying child is put back together. If we look at the map for FNAF World, it sort of looks like a human
please
brain.
be quiet.
Some people disagree that it's a brain at all, which, fair enough, it's pretty abstract, but humor me for a second. If we take a look at this dead zone in the top left, dusting fields, I think
I
given
have
its
heard
position
about
on
this before.
brain, it could potentially represent the crying child's broken mind.
I have heard about this
missing
before,
or at least having
actually.
sustained damage to its frontal lobe.
I
There's
can't
a
really
sense that
see
this part
it,
of the map
but
may not have always been desolate. An old,
I think-
run-down
I
Ferris
think
wheel
the
looms
theory's
over the
interesting.
entire area, and the shadow of a bear wearing a top hat dances on a tree stump
so weird.
long after his show has ended. This area in the
It's
modern
so
FNAF
weird.
landscape evokes strong notes of Fall Fest and Fredbear's Singin' Show. Even if these concepts were barely a twinkle in old Scott Cawthon's eye when he made FNAF World, the idea that this place once held importance and has since frozen over is interesting when comparing it to the crying child's condition.
Yeah.
So, okay, CC loses his frontal lobe and is hospitalized,
Cool.
surviving the event the same way that Jeremy did after the bite of 87. But when he eventually does die, his broken mind becomes one with
Cassidy.
Fear.
Oh.
some of you probably don't know what that means, or you've heard the field memes and know it's tangentially related to Fazbear Frights, but don't really get the ins and outs. Now, I could try and explain the field to you, but I am far from the best bred FNAF theorist when it comes to
Okay, I have
books.
no idea what this
Luckily,
is
I
now.
know somebody who just made a 36-hour video discussing
Oh my
Fazbear Frights,
God.
and is probably the most knowledgeable member of the community when it comes to understanding how these books relate to
I like
external
how
media.
the title is a very short introduction. And what did he just say? Like it's like 36 hours or something? Jeez. Yeah, I'm not getting involved with I'm not doing that. I thought it was going to be, because I said this earlier, I really thought he was going to line up his Cassidy theory with this. That's why I confidently said, oh, Cassidy. I don't know what the field is. I have no idea what that is.
To explain the field and how it ties into God Victim, here is your FNAF world building and media literacy professor, to external media. To explain the field and how it ties into God Victim, here is your FNAF world building and media literacy professor, Gibby from the Horror Homestead.
Cool.
Hi, I'm
Hello.
Gibby. FNAF has a magic system,
Whoa.
and no, I don't mean magic wands and mana. A
Oh,
magic
how
system
come?
is the term used for the way any supernatural force works in a piece of media. In
Okay.
FNAF, there are explicit but undefined supernatural events, like posters changing on walls, Golden Freddy appearing and disappearing before your eyes, words flashing in front of your vision. In the FNAF universe, these supernatural occurrences can be quantified through a substance called Remnant.
Yep.
Remnant is first used by name in the games in FNAF 6, where it's explained that Remnant is what leads to the creation of ulterior presence, or ghosts. The games do little to explain this further, but it is explained in the novels. In non-scientific terms, it's like the metal is haunted. It's more complicated than that, of course, but it's similar to the way that water conducts electricity. Remnant is the mixing of the tangible with the intangible, of memory with the present. The people and things that are lost,
I'm pretty sure
it makes them
the
almost real
FNAF
again.
novel
Two
trilogy
things in the
explains
series
it as
have
well.
been shown to create remnant: agony and love. Areas and
Yes.
objects permeated with lots of memory increase the effectiveness of the magic. While Scott could have stopped there with his explanation of FNAF magic, he goes one step further by actually explaining how this memory magic works. In the
Okay.
Fazbear Fright story Fetch, the main character, Greg, is interested in the 0-point field and attempts to gain control
that's where
of
it
its
came
limitless
from. Okay, yeah,
power.
no, I do remember
The entire
this.
story focuses on the field, as
Yes.
does the story of the villainous Dr. Phineas Taggart in the Stitch Wraith epilogues. The
Yeah,
thing is,
okay, I
the
do remember
0-point
this
field
now.
is very real. Everything in the universe is made up of atoms. And
Yeah, I
atoms are
think-
made up of smaller components that we call quantum particles.
I think
The
this does
empty
get
space
explained in
between
Fetch,
particles should
actually.
have nothing in it, no energy. And yet, at temperatures of absolute zero, where energy should not be present, our tools still pick up energy readings. We call this the 0-point field. Everything I just said is real science.
Yeah.
But what we're going to talk about now is not scientific, it's just plain fantasy. Quantum magic is the idea that by harnessing or controlling the 0-point field, you can manipulate reality in any way you see fit. If this sounds familiar, it's because it's what the Force in Star Wars is.
It's an energy field created by all living creatures. Surrounds us, penetrates us. I am the galaxy together.
The weirdest.
These concepts are written about in the book The
Star
Field
Wars
by
fanfic
author
ever.
Linda Taggart, which is almost certainly where Phineas Taggart gets his name from. She describes plenty of real-world experiments that seemingly prove the existence of quantum magic and the use of the 0-point field.
Yeah, supposedly.
She believes that our thoughts determine our reality, and thus you can manipulate the field by thinking really, really, really hard. Something Lynn discusses, which is based in the current scientific understanding of the human brain, is that memories are not stored in the brain like grooves on a record. Memories are stored all throughout the brain. Taking out a chunk of your frontal cortex does not remove your 9th birthday party. You just might have difficulty accessing that memory, but the memory itself isn't deleted. Quantum mysticism views the entire universe in a similar way. They believe the quality of everything exists everywhere. It's like a memory made present, which is the exact definition of remnant from Fazbear Frights.
Yeah, he's not wrong with any of this. I was not expecting a science lesson, but it does make sense as to why we're having this. It does make a lot of sense, because Fetch has a lot of details to do with the the field. I do remember what the field is, because it gets mentioned a lot in the Fetch story. A lot of it I didn't understand, I'll be honest. I'm not a scientifically minded, knowledgeable person. So a lot of it kind of did go over my head, but I still appreciated that it was there. I did not expect to get a science lesson in this video. It's kind of cool though, it is interesting, and I can see how it goes back to Unwithered's Truth Like theory, talking about Fredbear and Crying Child, and how Crying Child's memories are becoming, like, shaping reality. Like they've used, the Star Wars and the Force. They've used that as an example, and it's the same thing. It's the same principle. So I get where he's coming from, and I like that you're using, like, real-world science to back up your theory.
Lynn also argues that children have greater access to the field than adults. It's also said to be easier to access the field when in a state of unconsciousness. And this is because the ability to control the field is easiest when a sense of self is diminished and you're able to accept that you're one with the entire universe. The problem is, in states where the sense of self is diminished, like being asleep, your ability to use your intention...
Sorry, I'm pausing again. I was just about to say, is that also the case when you're sleeping? But then they've just said it as well.
Shape reality is also diminished, but there is one circumstance in which that's not the case. Investigators attempted to replicate the work of the Princeton Pear Lab using random event generators, but with one important twist. They had enlisted several patients with frontal lobe damage. The only person to have a greater than normal effect was a volunteer who had a damaged left frontal lobe. The volunteer's particular handicap could have given him a reduced sense of self, but a normal state of attention. So, in Lynn Taggart's book, whom Scott names a main character after, it is directly stated that someone with frontal lobe damage has a greater effect on the 0-point field. Children have a greater effect on the 0-point field. Being asleep
so it all
or in a
comes
coma
together,
gives you
really.
a greater effect on the 0-point field.
The Crying
and the
Child was in a
0-point field
coma.
can ripple your thoughts into the universe to change reality to reflect your thoughts, and especially control machines. Remember, the field is just straight up canon in the Fazbear Frights continuity. And in that series, we are also told that agony collects around places and objects, which in turn increase the efficacy of Freddy Fazbear magic. Back to the Unwithered truth to see where he could possibly be going with all of this.
Yeah, I wonder where he's going with that.
Scott Cawthon imported his magic system from a pseudoscience self-help book from the 2000s. I'm kidding, the field is peak sci-fi fantasy. I would have done the same thing. Anyway, given what we now know about the field and agony, who might just fit the description of a child who lost their frontal lobe and endures torture day in and day out?
Yep.
Empowered by agony and driven by an inability to organize and ground his memories, the crying child's spirit accidentally begins to warp the world around him. Events from his past reoccur, and his childish misunderstandings of innocent things begin to take twisted shape in reality. Scott didn't give us a half-baked "it was all a dream" plot. He crafted an origin story for not only FNAF's most powerful entity, but the entirety of the game's key events
talk about that one
to
in a
that
minute.
point. And what was that final Scott Games hint? 4 games, one story.
Yeah.
Except I don't even think it ends there. As Gibby pointed out, the magic system of FNAF also
I mean,
makes it
obviously
clear
not,
that
'cause the game's
places and
continued on as
objects
well.
imbued with agony can also affect the field, meaning that we might be dealing with more than just a god victim. We're dealing with the haunted grounds of Fredbear's itself.
I mean, yeah, I thought that was the case as well. Part 5, Hollowed Ground.
I'm going to try to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner or something like that. It was closed for years, though. I doubt we'll be able to track anybody down.
Have you ever wondered why Fazbear wants to contact the owner of a restaurant from 2 locations ago? I certainly have, as have many other theorists over the years, but for a long time we just assumed it was Scott trying to lay the groundwork for sequels and prequels by dropping a lore-relevant name. However,
See, that's
if we
what I
consider
thought
the
as
words
well.
original restaurant owner,
But it doesn't
could
make
Scott have been
sense for
trying
them to
tell
do
us
that.
the FNAF 2 pizzeria was actually the revamped Fredbear's Family Diner. At the start of FNAF 2, the newspaper says that this is a vintage pizzeria given new life. Freddy's has only been around for 4 years at this point. It would be a real stretch to label it vintage.
Yeah, that is
Fredbear's,
true.
however, seems to have been around since at least the early 70s, potentially even earlier than
So
that.
it makes sense that
I
it would
think
be
the
Fredbear's
vintage
Family
description
Diner.
would certainly fit. We also have lines from the logbook which ask if the crying child's favourite ride was the carousel, a feature only shown in the FNAF 2 location up to that point. It even features the classic characters who should be obsolete by the opening of the 87 location, but seem to be heavily promoted at Fredbear's. If the FNAF 2 location is Fredbear's, it would finally make sense why the majority of these connections would tie into FNAF 2 specifically. This plot of land is where the crying child endured the worst days of his life, leading directly to the event which is repeated 4 years later. So, is this any better than Dream Theory? Am I suggesting that under God Victim, all agency is removed from the story? Well, no. See, God Victim may account for some of the finer details of the story, individual events or quirks of the series where Scott can paint with a more intentional brush, but that doesn't mean we lose our characters' agency. In Fazbear Frights, the characters are perhaps pushed in certain directions by the field's influence, but they can still act of their own accord 90% of the time. God Victim, in my opinion, is probably the cleanest explanation for FNAF 4 that we have, given that it ties not only into all the hints and Easter eggs in that game, but also lines up very nicely with what we know about the field and agony from later entries in the franchise. If you're not a fan, fair enough, but I'd ask you to try re-examining the series from this angle and see if there might be any big, glaring things that I could have missed, anything I might not have mentioned.
Hi.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, I was waiting for this.
The reason I've avoided discussing this character in this video is because T-Dreads and I came up with a very interesting and kind of out there take on who exactly Cassidy might be.
Oh,
however, I don't want to
okay, so this was the first video, and then Cassidy was... The Cassidy video that we reacted to was after this. Okay. Because I was wondering when you were going to mention her. But yeah, no, that makes sense. The Cassidy video that we've already reacted to is after this one. Okay, that makes more sense now, because I was confused, like, why you weren't mentioning Cassidy.
This video with too many out there takes because I want God Victim to be able to stand on its own 2 feet.
That's
For
fair.
that reason, I'm going to make my Cassidy video and release it soon as a follow-up to this one.
We've already reacted to it. Hi.
As a sort of disclaimer to put at the end of this video, while all the conclusions you heard in this video were reached independently by myself with the help of theorists like T-Dreads and Gibby Horror Homestead, another very similar theory, known as Memory Victim, predates this video by quite a bit. While the Reddit account which created the post has since been deleted, I want everyone to know that this post exists. When we originally started coming up with this theory, we were just not aware of Memory Victim whatsoever, and so the name God Victim took a life of its own, and now that's just what we call it. There's also this video by Cyresquawks, which was uploaded while I was making this video. It's really cool and discusses a lot of similar evidence to this video, but he reaches slightly different conclusions, which is great, because it's important that we get as many eyes and minds on this stuff as possible. It seems that, as a community, we are finally ready to look at FNAF 4 in a new way, which might just get us closer to solving some of the greatest mysteries in the franchise. Anyway, make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and if you want to support what I do, consider joining as a member. If you don't, then it means I failed at manipulating the field.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for watching. Cool. I quite like that theory because it does kind of make sense. I don't really like the dream theory that MatPat came up with. I can't stand that whole trope in horror films and games where it's, oh, it was all a dream. There's only been a couple of horror films where I feel like they've worked, but yeah, I hate that trope. Because it's such a lazy way of answering everything. It's so lazy. So I don't like the dream theory for FNAF. Even though I like it got mentioned in FNAF, the first FNAF film. I like that it got referenced there, that was cool, but I don't like that theory. I think it's a bit silly. It was kind of fun to see, you know, the old like MatPat videos and stuff. And Dorko and MatPat just being so confused. Which, yeah, welcome FNAF lore in a nutshell, really. But yeah, I like your theory, you and Gibby's theory. Like, I think it makes sense, and I like that you've used real-world science to explain it and back your theory up. I've said this before with Unwithered Truths, like, videos, but I really like how you use all of the FNAF material, like the books as well, and the security log book as well, to back up your theory, and yeah, using like real world examples to further back that up and say, here's why I think this theory could work. Because yeah, it doesn't really make sense that there's some stuff from FNAF 2 in FNAF 4, given the timeline. Like, it doesn't really make sense. But I think the whole, I've said this while we were watching it, the whole idea of essentially the crying child having the force kind of works. It kind of makes sense. I guess that would also fit into FNAF 4. Would it? Because we're still arguing about who we're playing in FNAF 4. Like, some people say we're playing as Michael, and, you know, the guilt is what's creating the nightmares. But then other people are saying, no, it's a literal nightmare. You are playing as the crying child. Well, he's in a coma and he's stuck in this nightmare world. And, I mean, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that one's been confirmed. But the fact that, like, crying child having his frontal lobe damaged was confirmed, but it was done in a way that people thought Scott was just messing around. I was like, no, can you just say, this is what it is, this is what's going on, and say it in a serious tone? Like, stop saying it in a jokey manner, because then people don't believe it. And yeah, it kind of drives me nuts. It drives me completely nuts, because I've said this before, but it comes back to, we don't really know what's canon and what isn't. And while Security Breach and, you know, Ruin and stuff is a bit messy and a bit all over the place, and still were kind of doing their own thing with the story, it all makes sense as to why these games are coming out. You know, Secret the Mimic is doing a backstory on the Mimic, because he's going to be, that's the new big bad now. That is the new big bad of the franchise now. We need a backstory and origin story as to how that got there. And especially for people who don't read the books, where the Mimic's origin story is in the books, but a lot of people won't read it. So we need it in the game as well, which makes sense. And I think, because in terms of narrative, and again, I know Security Breach was a mess, but in terms of narrative and what Scott wants now, like, he can actually sit down and be like, okay, let's do a proper story now, and actually mark things out properly. And I think that is why I prefer Help Wanted 1 onwards, because it just feels a little bit more cohesive. Even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes, but way more cohesive than, oh, I'm just going to make stuff up on the spot and then not lead anyone anywhere. Oh, Matt Pat's guessed what I did before I did it. Okay, well, I'm going to do the complete opposite and be like, ha, fooled you guys. And now he's confused as to why the lore is all a mess. Like, come on, this isn't difficult to figure out. This isn't difficult to not do. And I think that's the other thing I don't like as well, is like when people are writing something or creating something and people figure out the plot twist, like, you don't change it just because people figured it out early. It's okay to just keep it that way. Sorry, I'm on a rant now. I'm on a rant now, and a lot of this I've already said before. So I am going to end this video here. So this was, I solved FNAF using one character. This is by the Unwithered Truth and GB's Horror Homestead. So I will put this video in the description down below. Thank you for the recommendation as well. I do have a couple of other recommendations that are going to be happening for the rest of the month. And then from the 9th of September and even into October, we do have Pacific themes, so I am not taking any more recommendations now until November, just because my schedule is going to be completely full up now until the 1st of November. The other thing I want to mention as well is I am still doing the Wishmas charity event, so the donation link will be in the description down below if you want to go and donate for it. Every $10 donated will mean that I will be drawing a character of your choice. Very badly. I can't draw. But I thought it would be a fun thing to do. So, yeah. But, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all soon. Bye!